Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Marvel Multiverse role-playing game and the Iron Snow campaign. And I got to back up a little bit. I kind of got things a little bit out of order. So at this point, what is happening is we have this situation where it's popping off between the X-Men. And this has been brewing for a little while. And Green Goblin was asked by Jubilee to be one of the first to be the first X-Men who was not a mutant, right? And Jubilee wants to replace Cyclops as the X-Men's lead, and then also Jubilee wants to take the X-Men beyond mutants. She's like, the X-Men is its own team. There's really no need for it to be mutants only, and the reason why is mutants don't need protection the way they used to, right? Like, we were a marginalized group, now we're a highly privileged group. We don't need protection the same way we did before. Kind of interesting, right? So basically, this is popping off right at the Capitol building, exactly where January 6th occurred, right? And it's happening right in front of there. And Green Goblin needs to get there. But how does he get there? Okay, so I got this wrong a little bit, and I want to correct this, okay? All right, so, appreciate your patience. One of the things that's really different than a Dungeons & Dragons campaign is how much, when you introduce a character, because it's a Marvel character, it has so much freight, right? So, like, just characters meeting and talking is so much more important in the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game than it is in most Dungeons & Dragons games. So I just kind of want to talk about it. I may break out and do a separate video on that alone, because it's such a big deal, right? Yeah, so, okay, so basically, let's jump into this. Okay, so here's the order on how, so what I want to do is I want to get correct how Green Goblin gets to being on top of the Capitol building, standing next to Storm. Okay, so here's what happens. So first of all, Green Goblin is Norman Osborn, and he's hanging out in his penthouse in Manhattan, right? He's a billionaire. He's got an entire floor on top of this New York City skyscraper. The whole floor is his. He actually opened his home to Punisher. Frank Castle's been living here, but they can literally pass each other, right? Like, they can. There's the floor. He's got the whole floor, right? So it doesn't really matter that Punisher is there, because Punisher can come and go as he wishes. Like, he's got a lot of room anyway. So basically, this is one of the, it seems a little. I don't know if this is super lame or if this is like cool the way I did it. But most of Green Goblin's adventures are starting with him like, hey, this thing in the world is popping off, right? And then him going there to be involved or not involved. And one of the reasons why I did that is I wanted to run like a modern Marvel game, right? Like, cell phones really change the world, the way our world works, right? And so basically, one of the things I can do too is I can present these adventures like Norman seeing it on his phone, and then he can determine if he's going to go or not, right? And and so that's the idea, right? So he sees on his phone that Jubilee is getting into a verbal fight with Cyclops, and he knows from the friction that's already been communicated to him, right? He knows that the friction that's already been communicated to him, with the X-Men, he knows that this is going to pop off, right? He knows that their verbal fight is almost certainly going to come to blows, right? So first of all, here's what happens, right? So Norman Osborn does not get involved with Spider-Man, okay? Norman Osborn does not contact Spider-Man yet, okay? Now, he has this relationship with Spider-Man where Spider-Man is explaining his powers to him and helping him to control him. But once Spider-Man used Reed Richards to explain Norman Osborn's powers, Norman Osborn is starting to back away from Spider-Man, and one of the reasons why is people are warning Norman Osborn about Spider-Man, saying, "Hey, if you hang around with Spider-Man a whole lot, you're gonna just end up being his puppet, right?" Because that's what Spider-Man does. He's considered an X-Man, and he's considered an Avenger, and he's independent. He's a world-class hero, and he sucks superheroes into his whirlpool, and generally they don't come out, right? Like, so if you get involved with him, you're just gonna like end up being a sidekick to him, right? And so I think Norman took that seriously, and it is kind of interesting, Spider-Man really, and it's almost, Spider-Man really did. Spider-Man is I think, and I started to understand this. Spider-Man is actually what Norman Osborn kind of wants to be, a freestanding, independent superhero, right? Which Norman Osborn has, is trying. The Gold Player is trying to make Norman Osborn that, right? And what's really fascinating is I'm starting to understand the shape of my own dungeon mastering better and see some of the flaws in it a little more clearly. But again, I want to keep focused on this video, so let me keep going here. All right. So maybe I'll discuss that in another video as well. All right, let's keep moving. Okay. Excuse me. All right. So basically, you get this situation where okay, so Norman Osborn is aware of this fight popping off between Cyclops and Jubilee. He also realizes this is very dangerous, right? So then I said, hey, what are you gonna do? And he's like, I'm going to go to the Sanctum Sanctorum. So Norman Osborn recently got Wong and Doctor Strange as an ally, okay? And and also Norman Osborn's aware, Green Goblin is aware that he can't really get anywhere quickly, but Doctor Strange can. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Then Nico Minoru, Sister Grimm from the Runaways, bamfs into, and I'm just saying that quickly. She uses Staff of One to transport, and she transports right to his penthouse, right? Like, and says, "Hey, it's popping off. I need to go help Storm. Let me go with you," right? Then Punisher comes and says, "Hey, I know you're heading off to Washington D.C., but this fight between Cyclops and Jubilee, already Dr. Octavius, the Bactopuses, and the Mole Men are going to take Queens right now. They're taking Queens right now, and they're using this fight between the superheroes as a distraction, right? So they can get their work done. So New York needs a hero, right? So Norman Osborn says, "Listen, I'm going to Doctor Strange. Punisher, you go and help." You go and fight Dr. Octavius and the Mole Man in Queens. But I'm not sending you alone. And then Norman Osborn calls Spider-Man and says, "Hey, I need your help in Queens. Go with the Punisher." And Spider-Man says yes, right? Which I didn't even think about that until later. Like, Norman Osborn flipped the script. He told Spider-Man where to go. That was pretty smart. That was really smart on the part of the Gold Player. Okay, now we're caught up. Okay, Nico Minoru says, "Hey, I know I'm supposed to be going to college, but I really need to help Storm down in Washington D.C. I know you're going down there, and I want to go with you." And so he's like, "No problem. We're going to the Sanctum Sanctorum, right?" So Nico Minoru and Green Goblin, actually Nico gets on the back of the glider. They fly over to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and they go in through the top. And Wong opens the door, brings them into Doctor Strange's library, right? And then this is what happens, right? This blew me away. I was really shocked at this turn in the game. And again, this comes from Gold Player having a lot of agency and a lot of brilliant ideas, right? So he's like, hey, Doctor Strange, all this stuff is popping off between Cyclops and Jubilee. I could use your help getting down there. But also, I wanted to introduce you to Nico Minoru, right? And this is Sister Graham, and she is the one who succeeded in the spell that you failed in, right? And Doctor Strange is shocked, and he's kind of depressed. He's like really depressed that like this teenage girl was able to do what him, Wong, and Moon Knight failed to do, right? So he's a little disappointed and depressed and like shocked, right? But he's like, okay, listen, no problem. Thanks for trusting me. And then I couldn't believe this. Norman Osborn then says to Doctor Strange, listen, I'm going to go down. I'm going to handle this situation with Cyclops and Jubilee. But what you need to do, okay, is I need you to go get Charles Xavier. I didn't even put this all together until we're talking about it now. I certainly didn't get it in the middle of the game. But Green Goblin is now starting to task major superheroes, right? That's pretty incredible, right? Doctor Strange, because it was a good idea, is like, yeah, I'm going to go get him, right? I promise you, I will have, and actually, Doctor Strange says, Professor Xavier is with the Shi'ar Empire, right? And he's been there for 3 years. You sure you want to bring him back? And he's like, yeah, I want to bring him back. And he's like, no problem. Because we're very close to a war in the X-Men, so this kind of has to happen. All right, so no problem. I'm gonna go get. I promise you, I will bring Professor Xavier back to Earth within 24 hours. Right? Then, and then he and Wong bamf out like to go all the way to the Shi'ar Empire to get Professor Xavier. And then Nico transports magically Norman Osborn to the very top of the Capitol building, and he's right next to Storm, and they're looking down on Storm and Jubilee. He's next to Storm, looking down on Jubilee and about to fight Cyclops. Okay. And so, sorry I had to back all the way up there. There's the social aspects are just as important in this game as the combat aspects, which I have to say is a little shocking. Just like from Dungeons & Dragons is so combat oriented for multiple reasons, right? And so the flow is quite different in this. So thank you for your patience for me getting that right and backing up a bit there. And we'll continue in the next video. And thank you so much for letting me share this with you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.